Welcome to today's Corporate Venturing Insider series. I'm so glad to have Kathryn from Hines Global Ventures, who's going to share with us a young journey into corporate venturing. Kathryn, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's so good to be with you, Nicolas, and everyone watching. Thanks for joining. This is a wonderful series, so I'm delighted to be with you.
Yes, and you told me earlier that you watched a few, so you know how it's going
Yes,
to go.
yes, big shoes. So thanks for having me. It's great to be together.
So, Kathryn, maybe you could share a little bit about your personal journey into corporate venturing.
Absolutely. So I'm based in New York City today, but I'm from the U.S., the West Coast, from Arizona, and I'll trace back my journey to really my college days when I had a ed tech startup that ended up spinning into the university that I then worked at for 7 or so years as the beginning of what really has been the through line of my career of strategy and innovation and now corporate venturing explicitly. My ed tech startup did not achieve the heights and scales of unicorns, but spun into Arizona State University, which gave me a great platform in which to activate and move that project forward as a university program, but also get quite involved in a variety of other strategic partnerships and platform engagement opportunities in what is now, I think this is year 9 for Arizona State, ranked the most innovative university in the country in the US by US World News and Reports. So, under the leadership of President Michael Crow, was able to advance partnerships with companies like Starbucks. I'm working with institutions like the Smithsonian and learning the ins and outs really of what I still today use so much in terms of how do partnerships and relationships, especially among very different groups, come together. So, I took that experience, moved into the private sector, and spent several years at McKinsey, based in New York as well. So leaving the desert into Manhattan, and I've been out here now going on 6 years, and joined Hines after falling in love with the big mega problems that real estate presents as opportunities to solve. So my journey at the firm has been in our investment management team, helping co-design and lead and launch a new approach for how we take many of our strategies now in investment management forward. I then worked and led a strategy team, and that team, along with our executive leadership team, was key behind how Hines has thought of what's now Global Ventures, which I know we'll talk about. So my journey is certainly non-traditional, coming from the world of higher ed into real estate. My background by discipline is as a molecular biologist and pianist, and I have a master's in public policy. So certainly not intuitive. How did I get over into investing? But really on ground learning, working on real deals, real problems, and building real teams has been how I've gotten to where I'm at today, as well as the faith and support from certainly the Hines firm to allow me to serve in this role for our global platform, which I'll tell you more about.
Very nice. Let me start with the EdTech startup. Were you a student when you started it?
I was, yeah. So I was a student in a student-based accelerator called the Edson Student Entrepreneur Initiative. So along with my co-founders, we launched at the time, the rise of massive open online courseware was huge, from edX to Coursera to many others, some that still exist, some that don't. As scientists, my co-founders and I, we were really interested in what is the equivalent of learning online, but not just learning, but actually doing and practical applied research at scale. So harnessing the power of the massive open side of crowdsourced individuals with some latent time and some extra pairs of hands and interest to do applied research. How do you match up communities really in a marketplace of people with problems to solve, where a novice could actually engage and actually, through the power of more, create positive research outcomes. So it was a bit of a complex idea. Our acronym adjustment of MOOCs was more, massive open online research. Doesn't really roll off the tongue, but our venture was called Quanta, and became Spark as I rolled into the university, and learned a lot when we were having our proof of validation pilots. Again, all staying local in the Southwest, but targeting secondary students that really have a desire and sometimes a need, especially, for some real practical training outside of their classroom, and matching them with scientists that had real problems that needed solving. And again, could be structured in a way that let people engage in this online format. So early days, and we got some interesting journeys along the way, but very glad about the outcome in hindsight. At the time, every setback is always a learning moment, and in the moment, you can't always see the learnings.
Well, what I'm sensing is a sense of conviction and passion for the project. And what I'm also hearing is that you didn't let it die. You actually morphed it into a university project, which I believe is still ongoing.
It's transformed a lot. So I think A and B don't look at the same, but it seeded what became a few different programs and projects within what at ASU is called the Office of Knowledge Enterprise, where it really is the top level research officer looking after research advancement for the university writ large. So in some form, it's alive, and certainly the genesis of the idea really sparked for me personally just a great set of steps that I could never have predicted when I took the call and said, yes, I'd love to take this challenge and see how this looks inside the university. I had a very different path, Nicolas, outside of starting at ASU to take my career into more traditional leverage of my science background with a passion for what I thought at the time was law. And if I had more time, maybe I'd do all things, but I'm very pleased with where I am today.
Well, I nearly feel like your project chose the path you took versus you chose the path you wanted to take, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Well said. Well said. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, which I think leads to the entrepreneurship mindset. So, what you've shown is the ability to pivot and to morph the project. Can you tell me about how tough that was, and at the same time, any tips for the entrepreneurs who are listening? There are a few.
Sure. So yeah. Speaking still about the venture and the pivot, I think one of the most difficult pieces really was thinking about, who is our target audience for this particular venture, and how does it really need to change based on where and how the sponsor is coming at you, and what does that sponsor need and require from capital, or in this case, more of a partnership structure from the spin in. So I think adjusting your pace and tempo and listening to the capital or the partnerships you have around the table is crucial. I think too, really not surprising to the entrepreneurs listening, being willing to roll up sleeves and do all things fast. We had a few setbacks with a very key team member that took a step back at a very critical moment in our journey that did set a direction one way. But I think holding firm to your convictions, always following the North Star that you've set out, and making sure you have a clear and common understanding of what's the mission you're attacking. So you're not trying to solve too many things at once for too many different audiences and not have clarity on the actual problem you're solving is very critical, which is easy to lose sight of, especially when you have a dislodging event that might take you off course or make you feel like, well, I better try a few things at once now to stabilize. So staying focused and really listening to your sponsors, and whether it's your board, capital partners, whatever it may be, are some early learnings for sure that apply outside of the startup context, but I think almost to everybody's role, job, or whatever it is that you're trying to advance and get across the line.
Very nice. And then I looked at your LinkedIn profile, and what comes across is not being afraid to take special projects that are strategic. Can you talk about how you go from project to project, and maybe your criteria for assessing them?
Sure. Yeah, I think so in my career, I've again been able to work within large organizations with senior leaders as well as field leaders and all levels of leaders to get work done. I think to your question of criteria, when thinking about how to advance projects, I think a lot about, really what and who are the stakeholders looking for, and who are they themselves, and how engaged will they be in the process. Really getting that right at the outset removes so much friction that you might have later on. In the case of the partnership with Starbucks and Arizona State University, that I was privileged to lead from the ASU side while I was at the university, that really came from the marriage of like-minded leaders that really had a like-minded mission, I should say, from two very different types of institutions in higher ed, and in the public company of Starbucks with Howard Schultz's leadership at the time, really having that clear vision and direction from those two leaders, then allowing the teams on the Arizona State side and the Starbucks side to activate against, really removed a lot of friction otherwise that could come up without clarity from the top. It's a privilege to have it. You don't always get it. And so if you don't get it and you really need it, you need to ask for it or find ways to make sure the mission that you're trying to advance is right sized to whatever sponsor or environment you have around you. Because often, I think this is my second point, sponsor alignment is key and crucial from the top of the house, but also right sizing your resources for the mission is equally important. I think about things that we're doing today within Hines and making sure that we have the right scope and people and talent and resources, and not letting too much time go by before voicing concerns or questions, always with the spirit of how can you be most efficient, but otherwise make sure that you're syndicating. Often if something isn't on track, better to let someone know sooner than a disappointment down the road.
Yeah, I can imagine. And then there is something which is bringing a lot of, I think, discipline is your time in McKinsey. And what I'm interested is, what did you learn there that you use today?
Yeah, well, how much time do we have? I learned quite a few things many things all confidential, but I think the core of my experience at McKinsey was fantastic. I met so many smart, brilliant colleagues from so many different parts of the world, all focused on very different problems, and of course, some in the same types of spaces that I was fortunate to work with. But I think this real desire to do the right thing, which may sound corny and cheesy, you can learn that maybe a lot of places, is very clear to me, really in the client service industry. And how are you, whether it's in hospitality, whether it's in, again, more traditional types of consulting roles or other types of advisory roles, this mindset of service, I think, is huge, that I already felt I had quite a bit working in a public institution with different resources, different interests to manage from the university side. But that was really a double emphasis, I think, to me in my journey. And taking that kind of end user experience in mind is so much of what we need to do when it comes to venture. When we look for founders and what are they building or creating, and how are they thinking of what their real end user needs. It can't always happen perfectly, but I think from my McKinsey time, I really, really was fortunate to witness some senior leaders really exercising and living that value very well as the concept. I think a lot about of really ensuring the right people are in the right mission at the right time. That oftentimes a mission will change fast. Sometimes it will go on for a long time.
Yep.
And sometimes your particular superpowers may just be better suited to different parts of a mission. So, with the constant rotation of teams and ways, again, agile, all of it as well, that we work from that land, bring a lot of those insights over. And of course, our entrepreneurs do too, including those watching this.
Very nice. Let's move to Hines. Maybe you could introduce the company, but also why you joined and your role when you were in the strategic team.
Absolutely, sure. So I've been privileged to be with Hines now for a little over 4 years. When I formally joined in 2019 in the summer. Hines, for those that don't know who we are a global real estate company. We're privately held and family owned. Hines has been in existence just over 66 years. Our founder, Gerald Hines, really set the company's vision and ethos in motion many years ago. We're globally headquartered in Houston, Texas. And the company today has grown across the globe to nearly 400 cities in 30 countries. We have an AUM where we are a fiduciary close to 100 billion of assets. And we manage third-party assets as well for others where we don't have a fiduciary interest. So our platform size, scope, and scale is quite large. Our focus historically has been and continues to be on real estate as the asset class that we are really focused on, from, again, all seats that matter in real estate. So we are a developer and owner, operator, manager of space. We're an investor through our investment management platform and one-off investments from our regional teams. And then in terms of the services side, we're very focused on client experience and strategy with a whole dedicated team around this, really thinking about what do our tenants need once they're in our spaces, whether it's office, residential, logistics, retail, or mixed use. And so we play across the entire value chain of asset types. And so this platform is it's very special in its size, as well as the fact that it's grown organically in the last 66 years, really through no acquisitions, with the exception of one more recent in our history of a property management firm in the UK that had been a partner for quite some time prior to that transaction that's public. And so what's special to me about Hines is really the culture and also this desire to do the right thing always for our investors, our tenants, and our partners. Beyond that, we've got some really talented people and many people that have dedicated many of their professional years working within Hines. So it's certainly an evidence to the company's culture that was set in motion again from the founder, and now his son, Jeff Hines, alongside our third generation leader, Laura Hines Pierce, sit as co-CEO in our office of the CEO today. So Global Ventures, it sits within the Hines context. We are a global platform, but we're focused within a unit that we call EXP. I'll talk a little bit more about that, but in terms of what does venture do within Hines, we have three priorities. One is venture building. So we have an incubator studio where we build startups from early stage ideas through Series A, roughly in terms of size and scale. And the mission for most of our ventures, we think, will be to spin out of Hines and into the market. So we're not just building things that only work for Hines.
I see.
The second category where we focus is in our venture investing. So this is placing relatively smaller check sizes, but directly into others' companies that are incubated outside of Hines. Our focus is on later stage Series B and beyond. And we have a small, talented team in place, poised for investing, that sits alongside our studio team. And then we have a third sleeve of activity that's more nimble and right sized for the mission, focused on strategic partnerships that might be one-off relationships, but all for commercial outcomes. And this business unit sits in this team called EXP that is two parts. Global Ventures is the one platform I've just described, but we sit alongside our sister team, Global ESG. And it's very intentional how the firm put together sustainability and venture in the same business unit, really thinking deeply that many of the challenges that we're absorbing and thinking about for the built world invariably have sustainability elements as a core category of what we need to care about. So I'll pause there. We could say a lot more about Hines, but I'll let you steer me.
Okay, thank you. And I will want to go back to this same business unit for global ESG and EXP. But before that, I want to go one by one through the three pillars.
Please, yeah.
And I will start with the venture building, not just because you started with that, but because I find this is actually a very challenging things to do, especially for a company which I think is purpose-driven, very stable, family-owned, organic growth. And here you're trying to go and do that growth and then take it out of the company. So can you talk about what was the rationale for having a venture building team and what would be a success metric for you?
Sure, it's a great question. To talk about the venture side, I'll back up and paint the picture. Really, in the last 7 or so years, Hines has invested deeply in innovation. Prior to this team, we had what we called our Office of Innovation, that was really a lean team focused on identifying patterns and thinking deeply about technology times the built world and those intersections, particularly in the world of prop tech, with a big wave of capital coming and being part of the story and wanting to formulate really a team that was skillful, both understanding real estate and then also watching and understanding the prop tech landscape, but more from an indirect lens. So as we had some natural leadership transitions in really late 21, our leadership team, so we're governed by our executive committee, which is our strategic governing board of the firm, wanted to take a step back really to think about, what are some of the lessons we've learned? How have other firms really started to evolve? But we took a blank sheet of paper to say what is right for Hines,
Mhm.
given we are uniquely structured. It's a bit hard to name another firm that's doing all of the parts that Hines is doing. Of course, we have our peers and competitors and so forth, but our leadership team took a step back to really think about the next decade and the next decades ahead, and what types of levers and tools do we want to have available to us to much more acutely approach some of the very fast-paced changes happening in not only real estate but the adjacent industries around that are starting to converge. So, not dissimilar to our core business, where we've seen the traditional office, the traditional living space now get merged with retail into a mixed-use facility, and the convergence of product types. We too think, whether it's technology, consumer trends, financial sector, there's a lot of intersecting vectors, as we sometimes call it, that come through real estate, and real estate really sits at the center of those. So, to your question of, what was the purpose and why, what was Heinz thinking when we built,
Yeah.
the capacity for a venture studio? It was really the conviction that leveraging our superpowers and having a muscle that lets us respond by, again, venture building and an incubator model is critical, because in one sense, Heinz is really sitting on the middle of those customer insights and knowledge that only a firm like Heinz can gather. How can we use that to our advantage versus letting someone else take that and turn it
Mhm.
into a business opportunity? So that was really a core thinking on the studio. And you didn't ask this question, but we've had options of staging things and doing a studio and then investing and then partnering and maybe thinking
Yep.
later about M&A. We wanted to do all at one time, in part because we do things maybe more complex with boldness than others, but we also felt it was important to have all levers available, because not everything, as you know so well, is suitable for venture building. So we didn't want to be without the other muscle of really investing as the other key discipline, to come alongside the venture building, in a world where we'd find something quite interesting, but maybe we're not the right ones to build it, but it's a really good investment opportunity. So I will say we are still very early days. This is really the first 12 months of the model in motion. I think what we continue to want to do within Heinz, and what Heinz does so well, it really has an entrepreneurial spirit that we are harnessing in a concentrated way through venture process. But every day, our regional project teams and our local leaders are doing very innovative projects, works, discoveries, partnerships. And so, what we're also trying to do is pattern, recognize, and match, connect dots, and really bring some of those leaders either into our orbit or help us come into theirs to really learn from and cross share ideas. So, venture is not replacing what already happens every day at Heinz, but it's this marriage of a fully dedicated team where venture is not a part-time job. It's really the mission of now a small group of leaders with all kinds of interesting backgrounds we've brought into the firm.
So I want to double click here because you're in the first 12 months, and maybe one question is, are you already getting value even before it's getting out? So these
Totally.
first 12 months, what was the best value you already got, which maybe you did not expect?
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think one value we wanted to explicitly, when we did set out the mission for this function, express, was really how can we give skills to other leaders doing very different jobs that are venture skills, but apply, whether it's conducting a great customer interview, and really understanding what is someone saying to you, even if they're not telling you it with their words. Those types of, we just hosted an advocate training, as we call it, for some of our senior leaders that use their superpowers in finance, marketing, legal, et cetera, to really help our venture teams. We did that yesterday, and we did a little exercise with those leaders to walk them through what does it really mean to have a customer interview and hear someone say one thing, but actually how do you get deeper and really get those insights, so of what's really bothering them or agitating or not right. So we expected and we wanted, and I think we've seen this in the last 12 months, people really connecting, missions that they have and finding a lot more parallels than differences to venture. So that's been a fun and an ongoing opportunity for, continued secondary impact of what we're doing. I think the second thing that's been interesting is also new doors, new relationships, and new ideas that we've been able to bring into the firm pretty fast through just being in the market in this way for venture with the Hines platform. So again, it's early days, but whether it's new types of relationships that if it's not right for venture, maybe a regional team would have interest. And also vice versa, having a landing space for ideas that may flow to parts of our business that before didn't have a real home to follow up on or in the right way. I think we've seen some nice secondary impacts there too. And then just generally people, especially I will say our incoming generation of leaders within the firm are really excited about Hines leaning deeply into the space of venture. But frankly, it's been great just to get to connect with a broader ecosystem and expand our reach and engagement, and bring Hines to different rooms that we may not have been in before by virtue of having now some of these tools.
A few golden nuggets. I think what I'm hearing is that it's kind of a catalyst for your team members to bring skills up, entrepreneurship, surfacing good ideas, and that's just in 12 months.
That's right. Yeah.
What were you worried about before you start? And here I will be candid. I feel like venture building is so hard, and I wouldn't want to do that plus a corporate VC. That feels like two huge projects. So tell me what you feared about, and maybe some were justified, some were not.
Yeah, well, gosh, in our broadcast, I'll be transparent. But I think I will say the real positives. We have excellent leadership at the helm of our studio that spends every day, all day, as our operating partner to our ventures. So we brought in a very talented leader to do that work and sit alongside me and our broader leadership team, which is fantastic. I think yeah, gosh, is a great question. I was most worried about are the fears, certainly is, attracting the right talent broadly to an unproven platform. There are many choices for very talented leaders, and I think I've been pleasantly surprised. The opportunity to engage with the test bed that Hines offers an entrepreneur has been well received. So we have a journey to go, and it's not easy always moving a giant mothership or activating all of our uncommon and unfair advantages. But I've been pleased to also see how fast our leaders have responded within the firm, knowing the mission that we're on. So those have been some really, big bright spots. And I do think, I'm always worrying about something. So I certainly, would be lying to say all the worries are done. Of course not. There's always the next thing to do. But I think, just another concern is really ensuring that we're keeping up the pace that we need to and finding, other ways to, start extracting some value sooner than the long journey, right, that ventures take as they're growing. How do we start showing some of those successes sooner as ventures reach milestones, even if for the venture builder, they're not the milestones per se that they would be looking for, but from the corporate backer's perspective, how do we help bring the organization along and not do so in a way that disrupts the momentum the venture needs to go on? So I think we're still thinking about that, frankly, and there's a lot of learning that we can do and learn from others. But yes, it is an interesting opportunity for sure to figure that out.
Very nice. And before I move to the second pillar, any tips about how to communicate this activity internally so that people actually who should know about it knows about it and they understand the rationales and when to engage?
Yeah, well, communicate, and communicate again. Even if you think you've said it once, you might need to say it 10 more times. I think never underestimate that people they are always listening, but they have a lot on their plates. So don't be frustrated if someone asks you, "Hey, I've never heard about that," or "You never told me that you were doing X," or "How could you not have asked me for my view?" It's a natural question that people have because people are moving fast. So I think we just have to assume we're not the center of our universes. True for any role, but perhaps in venture. And then also things move so fast in venture building. What's true one week about where the venture is may be very different the next, and maybe it goes somewhere back to the previous week in the next one. But I think just keeping in mind, enough space for the team to create and then also communicate and not letting that gap get too wide between venture team and the firm. That's a huge balance to strike, and one that we are very conscious of in our organization. And so I think, again, striking those balances are huge, but those are two ones that come to mind.
Very nice. Let's move to the second pillar, which is a corporate VC.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
you mentioned that you invest in Series B plus, and I wouldn't be surprised it's linked to the term you've used a few times, the superpowers. So can you share a little bit the choice of Series B plus, but also why did you even start a corporate VC?
Absolutely. Yeah. So great questions. Yeah. And I will say the one caveat of B, any alphabet letter is, certainly it is a way to mark a moment for a venture, but we might invest slightly earlier, and, we're staying opportunistic. So taking the alphabet soup aside, what, really motivated us to start this, what we like to say is a corporate backed venture investment platform. We have the support of the firm, but we also are, seeking partners to help augment the capital that we have. And so all that to say, what was the motivation again is back to wanting to have more than one tool to approach the complicated ecosystem facing real estate, and to offer that to both for Hines's benefit, but for the marketplace of real estate, where we think we really can be, again, finding outsized value and driving that through the testbed that Hines has. The way that we've focused ourselves is thinking about, where can Hines, whether we're a champion, whether we could be a customer, or whether we just might have unique knowledge and insight, how can we provide companies really great value and be a true partner to entrepreneurs? And what's the right stage for us to do that? The choice to invest in the studio to take ideas from early stage through Series A, roughly, was one way that we wanted to de-risk earlier stage investments for now. And again, this is the current incarnation of our platform, which will continue to evolve. But we wanted to complement that with then the strategy to invest in companies that already have some traction, have revenues, and are generating, closer to the tens of millions of revenues versus the one or two. Really thinking about how can we provide support then to those entrepreneurs, again, with the unique insights, knowledge, potentially test beds, specifically at assets or properties, or with some of our clients and teams. And so we felt that slightly more mature companies was the right fit for a starting point. And then two, from our investment thesis categories, there's three ways we've defined that as well, just in terms of what we're hunting. So we're looking for deals that hit one, two, or all three of these themes. The first being, how is physical space and the use of it evolving? We are deeply focused on that as a real estate company, and care a lot about not just the physical world, but the blend of the digital and the physical. So we've really been spending some time building our investment theses around that bucket. The second is focused on next generation ESG solutions. And in this category, we're probably more focused on the E of ESG, but also thinking about solutions that really start to address some of the social impact outcomes and social measures that are important, as well as governance data and other tools that are all part of what is best in class and leading cutting edge technology. So we spend a lot of time with our internal experts from our ESG platform. And also we have a team called Environmental Strategies that has unique knowledge, insight around how we're going to actually get to net zero. So we can talk about that more. And then the third bucket that we invest around is next generation technologies that impact the built world. So whether that is more kind of horizontal technologies like artificial intelligence, or more focused areas like robotics and construction and robotic process automation for buildings, those are types of areas that we spend quite a bit of time on. So the thesis about investing is having another tool in our toolkit. Two, focusing a little bit later stage where companies are de-risked and we can add value, whether it's through feedback, potential customer relationships, or introductions that only Hines can make. And then three, really anchoring on themes that we think are impactful to our world and the broader built built world ecosystem.
Very nice. Is it fair to say, or maybe I should ask you, do you believe your industry is primed for disruption and these activities allows you to identify potential disruption and embrace them?
Said well, yes, and yes. Yes, we're primed for disruption, and certainly, my colleagues with many decades of real estate experience very much feel this way too. So, I'm benefited to be in an ecosystem. It's not just me doing things. It's a very team sport at Hines. How we think about venture, with some really hyper skilled people with different spikes of knowledge, whether in investing in the VC traditional world, the entrepreneurial side, and then bringing in the real estate knowledge. But yes, we're primed, and we want to continue to be on a leading edge as we have been in our history. So really, this platform was set up with a real position of strength, and how we think about the opportunities for us. So it's really about continuing to look above the horizon and do that with different tools than we've had in the past. But all pulling on, again, I'll refer to this concept we talk a lot about internally, the entrepreneurial bones of Hines that has really made the company who it is today.
Very nice. I'll come back to that, but I want to move to the third pillar, which is
Sure.
strategic partnerships, which
Sure.
indeed work hand in hand with everything you've described. So,
Mhm.
can you share about the strategic partnership and
Yeah.
how it works hand in hand, or how it's separate from each other?
Yeah, sure. I will. I will say that it's earlier days for us on this third pillar. So it's a fuzzy picture still today, but effectively we want to have, and when we set this platform up, really a sleeve that, again, we're always focused on venture within global ventures, but sometimes some relationships may be more appropriate as structured as a partnership. Again, whether that's a partnership around a specific objective or category like infrastructure or renewable energy, or around a particular common mission or theme. We really take a very broad view of that term, and very transparently, we're continuing to refine what that means for us and how that fits within our 24 priorities. So we've really invested a lot of work into the venture build studio infrastructure and the investing side. And the partnership sleeve, Nicola, has been more opportunistic for us so far. And these, again, may be smaller scope scale forums. It might be us being part of, different prop tech or built world tech ecosystems where we're adding knowledge and extracting it. So low time input for high impact, or much more dedicated, focused relationships, maybe with joint capital at risk. So we've kept, quite a bit of optionality in the sleeve, and it certainly works hand in hand with our venture studio team is talking often to the investing team, vice versa, as well as our partnerships arm. And really, it's another way in which we can activate value for our portfolio companies. We've also set up a dedicated platform engagement team. So when we make investments in companies, we have someone to shepherd those companies through the Hines ecosystem, not just a guide your own adventure, which is not as value add to the portfolio companies that will continue to invest in. And we're just getting started, so it's early days for us to deploy direct capital. But this year has been about really, starting and building the foundations and getting started.
And so it's early days, and you have these three pillars, which are all quite ambitious. Maybe it's a good tip for the audience, but did you get anything useful to help you shape your mind about how to do it? Did you get support from the community, the ecosystem?
Sure.
What would you recommend to someone starting to do?
Sure. So yes, we did get a lot of help. We talked to a lot of folks outside of Hines, but we also, as I mentioned a little bit ago, we wanted to start with a blank sheet of paper and really not be biased of how did others do it all, and let's just copy that. It's how we landed with this concept that we should bring venture and ESG under the same roof, under our CEO of that platform now, a gentleman named Doug Holte, who brings tremendous real estate experience, some venture experience as well, and combined is really another powerful force for how we express this within the firm. But to your question of other resources, we certainly leveraged a partner we may both know of a team called Mach 49 that really is focused on supporting corporations that are interested in leaning into their strengths with venture skill sets. So bringing in a partner like that to help think about, how might you set yourself up for success, and then really kind of seconding some of those leaders inside for a period of time has been a big way that we can move fast, and we have moved fast. But we've also then insourced our own skill sets pretty fast too, because again, with how many opportunities are ahead, we don't want to be at a disadvantage of relying on others to guide us, but really this is about building the muscle and just getting started and getting in the proverbial gym, if you will, and getting going somewhere, but with a bit of a trainer, not to reinvent wheels that we can learn from or what hasn't worked elsewhere. So that design feature and really thinking intentionally took probably about 8 months really in total as we were putting those building blocks together.
Very nice. And I understand the value to get in-house talent to hone on these superpowers.
Absolutely.
On top of that, first time we met was in Montreal at the Global Corporate Venturing team. So that was also a good team, a good conference at GCV to learn a lot, right?
Absolutely. No, it's such a wonderful ecosystem to be in, and with leaders like yourself and other teams that are doing this great work. So I thank you for raising that point, because going outside of real estate also was a big feature of how we just thought about what are others doing that are successful in other non-parallel industries, because there are a few great examples in ours. They're all different flavors, and we know all of those leaders and find them to be great collaborators as well. But we wanted to, certainly be in the right ecosystem, and the GCV community is really unparalleled. I have not seen another group like it that's really activating corporate-based venture. And so a really great group that we continue to be deeply a part of.
Very nice. And now I want to talk about something which I've never heard before, which I think is really special, which is this tethering to the global ESG team. And many corporate VCs will and have plans to invest with ESG in mind. But in your case, it's not just a message, it's actually the integration of the team and the way you work. So can you maybe share a little bit about the benefits it brings and the way you think is different than if you didn't have this tethering?
Yeah, well, no, and I think what you just said there is really huge. Like, it's always top of mind, and it's hard not to be when the two teams sit in the same business unit, report up in the same way, and have, town halls, shared joint team meetings, integrated team members that work across. We plug in ESG leaders into boards of our ventures. We bring in ESG leaders to help us underwrite and think about deals, or give us inputs that help us underwrite, I should say, on the investing side. So this is just huge, really, in terms of how we can maximize the collaboration. I think this year has been about a bit of the formation of both, the new structure around us, but also for venture, us getting formed. And now as we normalize some of our processes into this next year, we can really go much faster and deeper in categories that we've yet to really explore and unlock. Just this morning, I was spending time with our global head of ESG, and we were talking about the mega projects, or the mega opportunities that together ESG times venture can tackle. And so I won't preview our list just yet. Maybe our next insider, I can tell you more. But in terms of some categories already, we've thought quite deeply about whether it's providing solutions for our tenants that they're asking for that might require venture-based methods, but ESG knowledge expertise. This is one interesting synergy of venture building. And on our ESG team, we have a leader focused on ESG commercialization solutions. So there's a real nice synergy with that leader's background in our team, how we can work together to give tenants what they're asking for, even if it's closer to the core of our business. We, for venture, sit a bit adjacent to the business, not too far outside, but a bit more adjacent than ESG is always addressing really the core of what's happening today. It's always top of mind. It creates great, just whether it's thought starter conversations that push us, or again, these intentional moments organized around projects or missions, as well as supporting our core business that is working on challenges that require ESG integration, or the project team is really thinking forwardly about it for our new developments or acquisitions or asset management. Venture coming into the room as well is just another lever that we can give our project teams as well in the core business to think about how to, really improve outcomes for our investors, again, even outside of our particular direct ecosystem. So it's different, and I think we're still working towards how to continue to maximize that benefit that we haven't seen others bring the two together intentionally either. And the very last piece, as you can imagine, when we're building investment theses on technical topics, having that expertise right in house and right down the hallway proverbially is really, really helpful. So I will say that our global ESG team is our central knowledge group of leaders that sit in the center of the firm. But we also have this network of ESG regional leaders that are embedded in our regional platforms. So it's a broader team actually than even sits in our one unit together that we get to access. And the sister team to ESG environmental strategies, they're constantly thinking about how to achieve our carbon objectives at the property level. So just again, a real testament to Hines's investment in sustainability and then bringing that closer to venture.
And then I feel like you reinforce their team and they help you to build your superpower top of mind, but also probably your investment thesis. So I think it's definitely
Exactly.
special and golden nuggets for sure.
Exactly.
Maybe we can double click on the investment thesis because I have no doubt this is driving your investment thesis. So can you share how you build it and how you deploy your investment thesis?
Sure. So yeah, about every 6 months, we really take stock of what are the priorities and where are those priorities coming from. They come from top down within the firm, listening to our executive leaders and our board that we report to within the firm and the way that we're set up. Also, bottom up, surfacing of ideas from within the portfolio of what are our frontline leaders seeing as some of the biggest pain points or challenges or just repeated problems. Our team is pulling those ideas together. And this is important too, by the way, for our venture building pipeline, just where we source ideas today. The third factor that we'll be bringing more into the room, this happens informally, but we'll start to do this more intentionally, is the outside market. And whether those are conversations we have with ongoing partners in the VC community or founders or other funds, we want to be at the tip of the spear of where again is the puck skating. So we, from a process standpoint, have three ways we gather insights. We marry that with our own research, again, primary, secondary, talking to founders, funds, and really also technical experts, depending on the type of solution that we're looking at, to formulate then a perspective, and we debate it. As a team, we have monthly forums specifically to review our investment theses. And we
Interesting.
want them to be within our venture team. I think over time we have a chance to expand that with some of our real estate colleagues as well around the table to debate and poke holes. But this is a way internally for us to, really, again, develop a strong point of view and conviction. So as we're starting to see deals that we can quickly say, yes, that aligns to where we think the puck's moving, or perhaps pause or monitor a space or kill a deal fast. So that's our process. I don't think it's too maybe revolutionary, but what's really unique about it is having all of these different modes of input from the real subject matter experts and the frontline leadership that we have within Hines that we pull into the room with us. So certainly we're just getting started, and you all have a great model that we admire quite a bit at TDK. So we like your process a lot, and we've got I think a lot to learn from others like yourself.
Well, thank you. And what I can see is that you have a highly collaborative and highly inclusive process on a frequent basis, which I think is best practice. So I think the way you approached it is definitively very good.
Thank you. Yeah, we are yes, collaborative and want to have enough conviction as well as ability to debate constructively and not just have a group think of this must be the way. And so we really want to give that forum monthly a chance to pound the table for where should we go and why, and let's really listen to each other from all levels of the team. So no, we're on a journey and we're just getting started.
Now let's talk about something which I know you care. You mentioned it earlier, and I'm sure Hines cares a lot. Net zero. What's your approach in terms of your three pillars to move forward and maybe pull in on net zero?
Sure. So within the venture building side, we do have one venture that is very specifically working on carbon it's through building a carbon marketplace to match solution providers to asset managers in need of solutions to help decarbonize their assets. This team is called Sequel, spelled with a C for carbon, and QUEL, playing a bit on words. That team is launching and piloting in the UK to start as a go-to-market strategy. And while, again, what we build or what we invest in doesn't have to relate to everything we're doing in the core business, Hines does need to be a champion at minimum of what we do. And so our net zero strategy is set and directed ultimately by our leadership team of the firm. Hines has a operational carbon target goal to reach net zero by 2040, which is quite ambitious when you think about the global span of Hines's portfolio from Asia to Europe to the Americas. And it's for all of our product types and properties, not just newer assets or, a subset. So we want it to be very precise, follow science-based targets. And so if I think about from the venture building side, solutions that are helping mitigate, reduce, or accelerate, the pathway to net zero for others, Sequel certainly is hitting in that sweet spot and drawing a lot of inspiration from our subject matter experts who
That's
are
key.
every day, working on the problem for the core business. So one example there in venture building, and I think this is an ongoing series of ventures that we have yet to build. From the investment thesis side, it really is about, what are our strategies for the platform of Hines, and how do we use those to inform theses of where might we invest for solutions that really we do think can move the needle. So, for example, Hines is focused on renewable energy or energy efficiency tools and methodologies for the core platform. So when we're hunting, we might prioritize solutions that address, one or two of those categories versus, carbon credits, for example, is less of and not a focus of how we will achieve net zero. That 2040 target is without buying carbon offsets. Now,
That's
there's
good.
still, yes, thank you. So there's still a world perhaps where an investment, again, that sits adjacent or differently to our core business could make sense, but it at least allows us to focus with the benefit of, again, our knowledge matter experts. So, and then on the partnership side, being bespoke as it is, gives us a lot of degrees of flexibility to work with outside partners. And some of that, especially for net zero, may not sit directly in our team, but we're an input to what other teams might be structuring. So that, I hope I answered your question. It's definitely a really good one. And there's a lot of ways that we use our strengths.
Well, we haven't talked about the third pillar with the strategic partnership.
Yeah. So on that one, so that this is the area where we may be less in the driver's seat, particularly on net zero. We may be a participant in industry groups or working groups that are thinking about, for example, common commitments or goals, but we really want to follow the lead of our central teams that are really focused on for their day jobs, the net zero carbon for Hines. So there could be partnership opportunities down the road, but those are ones that I think we have yet to really uncover as we focus more on the build and the invest categories, just specifically to your question there for net zero. But no doubt there's a lot of ground that we need to cover with some mega partners, and that might be part of what we think about deeply in 24.
Very nice. I want to ask one of the last questions around superpowers. You talked about it a lot, which means it's top of mind for you. Clearly, Hines give you a superpower, but how do you make sure that this superpower translates into real value to the portfolio companies?
It's a great question, and many have asked us that in different forums and in contexts. From my point of view, personally, having process is crucial in order to have momentum and progress. So having very strong process in place, meaning the right organizational touch points, the right regional liaisons or embeds, the right types of conversations we have internally is so critical in order to make sure that you can actually access this great testbed of Hines. And so it really is where we spent a lot of time in the design mode. We've been, and we still will continue to be fairly quiet about what we're doing because we really want to have some strong proof points before we speak too loudly about where and how we're moving. But strong process and organizational design is crucial in order to allow for the platform superpowers to come to life. Otherwise, often the experience that I think many founders have had approaching large companies. You talk to one person, they send you there, they send you here, and sometimes you're back to the first person you talked to, and they don't know why you're coming back. So we want to avoid that for founders where possible. And Hines is certainly a large organization with a lot of complexity. So having common shared ways of working internally so that we present a single voice externally is really important. We don't want to take away the regionalization of Hines at all. It's a huge strength because it does let us test things at the subscale that our startups often operate at. So you don't have to be able to serve or meet the needs of the whole entirety of our hundreds of assets and large scale footprints, but we can just focus on one city or one particular property, for example. So there's a real power there, but it of course requires coordination. And then also, as unexciting as it may sound, but some really strong knowledge management and tools to help do that well, especially internally, so that a leader can look up and if you're wondering, hey, have we ever talked to company X, or have we thought about this particular category? Who should I call? There's usually an answer. So we spent a lot of time building out some tools and scalable processes. They're, always again, to the point of communicate again, opportunities to keep getting folks to adopt and to use, but we're finding good traction.
Very nice. And my last question is going to be about what's next. And for the audience of investors who may want to work with you or entrepreneurs who are listening in, what are you most excited to invest next?
Yes, great question. So we're always looking for solutions that meet those three categories I talked about: next gen ESG, revolutionary technology, and the evolving use of physical space. I'm personally really excited about solutions that are truly addressing what does it mean to be in a space and a place in this particular year and the years ahead, for whatever purpose it is that you need to be in that space for, around your work life specifically, as well as your social life. And we've got a few ventures cooking and a few investment ideas floating in some of those categories, but really taking a step change look at what does it mean to have flexibility, access, and usability of space in different ways. I'm really excited about seeing the solutions that founders and other teams will be doing out in the field. So that keeps me excited.
Very nice. Thank you, Kathryn. I think there was a few golden nuggets along the way, and I'm really happy you shared your early days into these three pillars, which I find very ambitious to do all three, but I can see how they all fit together and they augment this tethering to the ESG group, which I think is really special. And I think also works because it reports directly to the CEO. Thank you very much,
Nicolas, for the opportunity, and congratulations on all your momentum. And thanks to everyone who joined in to listen, and looking forward to engaging with all of you. Thank you so much.